Hey everyone, welcome to Actually Let's Talk About It. For those who've been here before, welcome back. And for those who are listening to us for the first time, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy today's episode, today's topic. Can I just be vulnerable for a second? I'm just feeling so anxious about this episode. I don't know why. I think it's because I haven't recorded in a while. And I'm just reflecting on the version I was when I was recording the previous episodes. I don't know who that girl is. Okay. This version of me is completely different. Yeah, so today's topic, you guys voted on my Instagram on the topic you wanted to hear, and today's topic is boundaries. And I'm just going with the flow. I'm just going to say what I think is relevant or, you know, something I've observed about myself regarding how I set my boundaries and whether I'm doing a good thing at it or not, or whether I'm actually comfortable with other people's boundaries. Do I also respect people's boundaries the same way I want people to respect mine? It's a bit of a call out episode, I think. Most people say my episodes are very calling you out type of episodes. I don't realize it. Sometimes I'll be calling myself out. So that's why they tend to be intense sometimes. But I digress. So, yeah, let's get into it. Why is it so hard for people to set boundaries? Why is it so hard for you to set boundaries? Why is it so hard for me to set boundaries? This topic is really forcing me to reflect and introspect because I know in my life there's so many instances where I was supposed to set boundaries or where I did set boundaries, but I never stuck with them. And I'm just throwing around this term as if assuming everyone understands, what do I mean by boundaries, right? And from my understandings, a boundary is just, a limit that you set for yourself to say, listen, this is how comfortable I am with either an interaction or a situation. So, for example, you go out, maybe your boundary is like, hey, I need to be home by midnight because I have work tomorrow, or things like, oh, you have a curfew, or things like, you know, I cannot leave town because I have to, you know, I have other family commitments, etc., etc. Those are the type of, that's what I understand from the meaning boundary, right? And the purpose of it is for you to have your well-being protected. It's mainly to protect your comfort and your peace and your space as well. And I think a lot of us have this habit of allowing people to cross a lot of boundaries, right? To cross a lot of boundaries. And sometimes people overstep unknowingly because you haven't really necessarily vocalized your boundaries. And as I'm introspecting, I have this habit of like assuming someone knows, like, this is my boundary, like, this is my limit. And, the saying, closed mouths don't get fed. You're, you've never vocalized that, hey, this is my limit, this is my boundary. I do not like do this. I do not condone this. I don't believe in this, da da da. And then that person oversteps and they suddenly piss you off because, they've crossed a boundary, right? But the question is, sometimes you should ask yourself before you get like mad and before you rule them out. Number one, did they know? Number two, did you vocalize? your boundary, saying, listen, I don't do this, I don't like this, please don't, etc. Did you do that? Most times we wouldn't have done that. Most of the times we are just assuming that this person knows this is my limit, and then we go to them guns blazing and being like, you know what? I can't believe you did this to me, da 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 da. But how do I know that there was a boundary in the first place? So there's that issue. And then the other one for me that I can think of right now is, when and where do boundaries apply? How do you categorize them? And why is it like so important for you to vocalize these things? And I think boundaries and triggers are very much interlinked. So like the triggers are the things that like set you off, whether that they make you uncomfortable, they make you anxious, things that make you uncomfortable, anxious, paranoid, and make you end up in distress or whatever. Those are called triggers, right? And sometimes, sometimes when we are not managing our boundaries very well, we tend to get triggered more often than usual. When we put ourselves in situations that are detrimental to our well being, i.e., that have no boundaries, no sense of, limit, we tend to end up being in very distressing states. And I think it is very easy to blame shift the other person, or to accuse the person who would have either hurt us or triggered us or crossed the boundary, for what they did. However, on your end of the bargain, did you actually set the boundary for this person? And were they aware of it? And did they overstep? Right? So I just want to give like day to day, examples of different settings where boundaries are very, very necessary. And I just want to show how practical it is for you to, get into the habit of establishing those boundaries and also vocalizing them, right? It is it's a very difficult thing to do, especially if you are not a person who is either emotionally intelligent or vocal in general. And for some people, it's easy to sweep it under the rug. Whenever you have weak boundaries, there's a risk of you getting into people pleasing, you being in uncomfortable situations, like I said earlier, and you not doing yourself a disservice, not really making yourself a priority, and low key developing like a self loathing, and you don't realize it until it's too late. So there are so many ways where boundaries apply. I feel like boundaries just apply every day in your daily routine. For example, if you are working, you need to set boundaries in your workplace. You need to set boundaries in your home, setting boundaries in your relationships, setting boundaries in your friendships, setting boundaries with your family members, with your parents, with, I feel like anyone you interact with. I think the difference is the degree, or like how each stakeholder is supposed to respect your boundaries, right? For example, I've noticed, especially if you're in, well, I'm speaking about in Zim, but You're starting out your career in corporate, you are an intern, or you are a graduate trainee, or you're just starting out, right? And a lot of people say if you're not careful, if you don't set boundaries like from the jump, it's very easy for your employer to take advantage of you. For example, you know, you getting more work and the pay not increasing exponentially, like the pay isn't matching the amount of work you keep getting added on to your pre-existing tasks, right? Setting a boundary would probably be not accepting more work unless you get paid, or unless it's something that is temporary, if you're okay with doing it temporarily, sorry. But that's an example that I know a lot of people um are challenged with, where they give so much of themselves to, let's say, an employer, a company, or whatever. They are overworked, underpaid, taken advantage of by the employer because they think this person is efficient. So why not give them more work, you know? However, if you are vocal about, listen, I knock off at 5 p.m. because I either have school or I have family commitments or I've got lessons or I teach or whatever. 5 p.m. is my knockoff time. I cannot do more work after work. Like, no, thank you. You would have protected yourself from, number one, incurring stress after work. Number two, having the privilege of just leaving work at work and improving your work-life balance. So it's just a very generic example of how you can set a boundary in your workplace. Setting a boundary with, let's say, your family members, establishing that, listen, I cannot attend this family event. I can't attend this reunion. I have other commitments. However, I can make it at this time so that I can, show or pay my respects or whatever, right? It is very important to have those limits in place because people take advantage of yes men. If you don't have boundaries, you are either a yes man, a pick me, whatever. You care about what people think of you. You are that type of person who is validated by people's opinions of you. You are not looking out for yourself when you do not have boundaries. So it's not polite. You're doing yourself a disservice when you just are agreeing to everything. You're just going with the wind. You don't have a spine to actually say, no, I don't want this, right? Think of boundaries, setting boundaries as like, I feel like setting boundaries is very similar to consent, do something or tolerate something because you want to, not because you're being forced to. Everyone is at liberty to make a decision and to make a choice. And it is very important that your choices are not detrimental to you, and they are also not detrimental to anybody else. You can do that in a healthy way, make healthy choices by setting boundaries. Put your phone on do not disturb. Stop allowing people to have access to you when they're not supposed to. Sometimes we trigger ourselves, There are some people that you have no business talking to or to still be talking to after the things that they've done to you, after what they said about you, or after how they hurt you and whatever. Some people need to be blocked. Okay. Some people in your phone need to be blocked because they have crossed boundaries over and over again. When it's time to sleep, like, people complain about this whole D&D thing, guys. I honestly feel like putting your phone on Do Not Disturb, that's you setting your boundary of saying, listen, I'm supposed to get 8 hours of sleep. I'm switching off my phone. Bye. If you're not okay, if you're not well, I'm unavailable at these times. I'm sorry. I need to have enough sleep as possible. And that's okay. That's you setting a boundary that is comfortable or that protects your well-being. So even things like peer pressure, boundaries also apply there. It's very people who are easily influenced or people who just go with the wind are usually people who don't have boundaries. And I don't know whether there's anything else that can convince or anything else that can convince me otherwise. Because if let's say you don't want to drink, you are tired, you're not feeling well, and people are popping off, people are talking about second location, people are talking about, buying more shots and whatever, right? Your boundary saying your body is already telling you, like, listen, I think enough is enough. The night has to end now, right? And it is important to listen to your gut and to trust your instinct and your intuition. Never ever ignore that because now when you say, yeah, no, okay, yeah, sure, and you don't feel like drinking anymore, and then eventually people are going to keep pouring drinks, pouring drinks, pouring drinks, you're going to be the one who's going to black out. You're the one who's going to have anxiety the next day. All those other people that you were partying with or hanging out with that night are not there with you. They are not dealing with the consequences of your decision. Boundaries help us protect ourselves or just reduce the damage of having to deal with consequences after. You don't want to deal with the aftermath. The aftermath is always harder, especially when, you know, when you don't have, you know, when you haven't set that boundary, right? So there are limits to everything. It's the same way people who are like, let's say, vegetarians, right? Their boundary is that like they don't eat meat. So even when they go to any restaurant, they're going to look for something that caters to them, right? It is so important for you to apply that in your life every time. And I don't know how I can emphasize how like it has such a direct effect also on your mental health altogether. Which leads me to my next point. Some of y'all know you have no business talking to certain people right now. Some of y'all know that this person is bad for you. Some of y'all know this is not good for you or whatever. You know your boundary, right? And you just keep letting this person cross it every time. And you get into this vicious cycle of just self-loathing, being self-conscious, wondering why they're treating you the way they're treating you, thinking that, am I the problem? Is it because I'm not pretty enough? Is it because I'm not, you know, wealthy? Is it because I'm not this, I'm not that? I don't know. But the problem is, you are allowing this person to cross your boundary over and over again and not force them to deal with the repercussions. When someone crosses your boundaries over and over, knowingly, they don't care about you. They hate you. They want to hurt you. They're not looking out for your best interests. They really aren't. So if you vocalize something and say, "Hey, I don't like it when you yell at me. When you yell at me, it makes me feel A B C D E F G." And then after you've said that, they yell again, and then you keep quiet. They yell again, you keep quiet, you keep quiet, you keep quiet. Until like you start questioning yourself, like, oh, they hate me or whatever, whatever. Girl, sometimes it's better to walk away, okay? You need to protect your peace. Boundaries help you protect your peace, help you protect your esteem, help you protect all versions of yourself. Like, sometimes we put ourselves in positions that cause us to inflict pain, self inflict, you know. So some of these things can be avoided if you can just, like, you know, set your boundaries. Say, no, you know what, if you're going to keep talking to me like that, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm walking away, or I'm ignoring you for a week or something. And then if they keep doing it, then they get blocked. They get blocked. If someone is going to end up being a trigger for you, if someone is making you anxious, making you second guess, and whatever, they're just a trigger. They're a trigger. If they bring out the worst out of you, or they bring out this, like, I don't know, anxiety inducing side of you, block these people, guys. Please stop talking to people who are not good for you. There are some people who say the most out of pocket shit. They trigger you with just one sentence or one word or one action, and you already start feeling like that inner child that's scared. No, we're not doing that. We love ourselves. We love ourselves and we're going to set boundaries, okay? You need to set boundaries and stick to your boundaries. And then I want to talk about the other thing about us respecting other people's boundaries. And I think it's very, very important for us to, you know, introspect about that. Because it's so easy for us to blame the next person and say, oh my God, this person was in my space, da, 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 you know. But there are quite a number of times you've actually crossed somebody else's boundary, right? Whether it's like, I don't know, bringing up a topic or an issue that is sensitive to them, or whether just showing up at their house unannounced and you know they don't like it and you keep doing it, stuff like that, you know. Whether it's you, I don't know, but I'm saying you also need to respect people's boundaries. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I really, really enjoyed recording it, and please, please share with your loved ones. I'm really excited for the next episode, and I'm going to try my best to keep these as interactive as possible. I am your host, Ayanda, and I'm excited. See you next time. Bye.